Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Kyra and I am a recovering beauty guru. What does that mean? It means for the last 6 years, while I was working in the beauty community on social media, I bought everything and anything that I wanted in regards to beauty. But now I'm reining myself in. I'm enjoying what I have, tracking what I have, and most importantly, I'm changing my mindset about the things that I have already day by day. And one of the ways that I do that is by making project panning fun, like a game. And this is one of those projects I'm going to update you on today. We have no pan left behind today, as well as a very quick project level up update, so let's get into it. At the last update, the 3 palettes that I had in this project were these 3. The Too Faced Sweet Peach palette was my choice. I do 1 choice and I do 2 random palettes, so I have 3 palettes at a time. And then Danessa Myricks Groundwork palette and Natasha Denona Gold palette were rolled in randomly. So the Too Faced Sweet Peach, I did finish up with this palette on April 16th. I did not hit any additional pans, but I did really enjoy using this palette, and I definitely will be putting up looks as we go through the video here. I'm still perfecting the process of keeping my looks organized and knowing what's what, but I did the best I could this month. I really enjoyed this, and I have to say, one shade that I really enjoyed that I didn't anticipate necessarily being a favorite was this purple matte right here, and then this shade Bellini right here. They're not ones that were in my mind palace of makeup as favorites or anything, but I did really enjoy that, and that was my choice. Well, actually it was Angela's choice, and it rolled out. On April 29th, I did finally finish up with my Natasha Denona Gold palette. This was a lot of fun to reach back into. It's not a palette I seem to reach for very often organically, but I really enjoyed every look that I created with this. I had mentioned in the previous update that these 2 shades right here, this very yellow gold and this sort of Dijon mustard shade, were the shades that I wasn't quite sure that I was going to enjoy. And really, honestly, I didn't. I liked this one more than I thought I would. The shade Dijon is actually what it's called. But I did put it in my crease and kind of pair it with a more neutral color to try and take down some of the yellow. And of course, I layered other shades over top. In fact, these 4 shades, this little quad right here, is actually one of my favorite looks that I created with this palette that I'll put up for you. But this shade is just not a favorite for me. If I could pop it out and replace it with something else, I probably would. But regardless, I really enjoyed this palette. I'm so glad that I got some good use on it, and that one rolls out. I also want to mention, and I always forget to mention this at the beginning, that in between updates, I do continue to roll palettes in and out as I meet goal, because I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes, and as a result, I want to touch as many of them as I can, and I just can't be waiting for monthly updates to be rolling in new palettes and stuff. I could, roll in more palettes at a time, and hopefully that would last me a month or what have you. But for me, 3 palettes is perfect. I'm enjoying like combining palettes and all of that. So just wanted to make mention of that. As of the last update, I had only used a couple of shades so far in the Danessa Myricks Groundwork Defining Neutrals palette. We have to say that now that she has a new one. It's so pretty. I did hit pan in this palette before I rolled it out, and that pan is right here in the shade Chiseled, which is one of my favorites. It's one that I've used in the past on my face as like a bronzer or contour. So I was not surprised that I hit pan, but I am a little surprised at how shallow those pans are, because honestly, they're not that deep at all. I was happy to hit a pan nonetheless. I've hit a couple of pans in this project, even though that's not the purpose, and I wasn't purposely trying for either of the pans, but they both happened, and I love that. And then I did finally finish up with this palette on the 16th of April, and it did also roll out. So at that point, it was time for me to pick my own choice again. And the one that I chose was the palette that I used in my most recent spring Get Ready With Me. And that is the Lime Crime Venus XL2. To me, this is the quintessential spring palette. I love pink and green and I love them together. And this palette does it beautifully. I've only used 4 shades. I've only done one look since rolling it into the project. I did really enjoy the look and I'm really excited to continue to play with this through what's left of spring and going into summer. Already, I have decided that this is a super cool shade. And it's kind of like a peachy, I don't know, it's almost like a peachy kind of duochrome shade. It definitely does something special, and I've never really used it before because most of these had hard pan on them when it was gifted to me by a subscriber. But I did go through with some Scotch tape and I fixed all of that. And you know, I try not to use the shimmers with my fingers since our fingers can have oils and other things. I do try to use a brush with these just to prevent hard pan from coming again. But like I said, I've only used 4 shades so far. I will put a graphic up on the screen showing you what they are. And hopefully this one will be rolled out long before our next update. Then I had a couple of single eyeshadows roll in before I rolled in my next random palettes. So it's actually kind of funny because the one single shadow that I have in my Project 10 Uses from Sydney Grace actually goes so well with the other 2. So this is Sydney Grace Blue Mist. It's like a blue duochrome shade, very beautiful. And then these 2 were rolled in. This is a matte called Cali, all from Sydney Grace. Very light blue shade. And then this is Midnight Amethyst, which is a beautiful sort of purple with a like kind of a black base, but like a purple metallic. It's not super metallic. I did go ahead and use Midnight Amethyst by itself. I used it on 420 and I used it as a liner that day, which is why I left it. I may end up using it again. I actually do really want to do a look with these 3 together, which is another reason I've left them in here. But those are the single shadows that rolled in. And as they roll in, I use them. And that's how I do that with my single shadows. I don't have my single shadows in any other projects now. I just have them in this one. So then at that point, the next random palette that was rolled in was the Pear Nova palette. That's just what it's called. There's no other name to it. It came from my daughter's Ipsy bag. Spoiler alert, I did decide to declutter this. These are just not shades that I need repetitively in my collection. Hello. And the quality just wasn't quite there for me. I did enjoy the look that I did with these sort of berry shades here. The yellow was definitely a little more challenging for me to use. I believe I kind of hid it around the edges of like a warmer eye look as almost a blending shade, which worked in that way because they're not super pigmented. But I mean, it's a nice palette and I feel bad because I feel like I'm forever decluttering things that my daughter gives me, but I want a curated collection of things that I love and want to reach for. And I can say with 100% certainty that I would not reach for that one again. There was just nothing in it that was like grabbed me. Even one shade, had one shade been like really, really good, I might have tried to pan it or something like that, but I just really didn't care for it. So at that point, I had both the Pear Nova and then the gold palette rolled out. So I have 2 more random selections that have been selected. And of course, I will have the wheels up here showing you that I did in fact roll these palettes. Now, the first one to roll in was my Dior Backstage Warm Neutrals palette. I'm kind of glad that this got rolled in, although I would really like a little bit more color in this project at some point soon. I'm glad I rolled this in. I still don't really know how I feel about this palette. I feel like the quality is there. I'm leaning towards no, but Hopefully I'll have a better idea of that once it's finished in this project. This one right here is like a eyeshadow primer, or it feels more like a concealer than a primer, but I do want to play with that as I go ahead and continue to work with the 3 palettes I have currently in. I want to see if it works as an eyeshadow primer for me. I have somewhat oily eyelids, so I really want to test that, and if it does work for me, I want to use it out of this palette because it's really not protected. It's going to continue to get powders in it and all of the things. So I do want to test that, and I will report back. And then lastly, my last random palette that was chosen, and both of these rolled in on April 30th, is my ColourPop Going Coconuts. More neutrals. I love this palette, however. This is the palette that I have on my eyes today. I used 6 out of the 9 shades in this look, and I'm very happy with the look. I think this is a phenomenal everyday palette. In fact, that was part of why I had purchased it for one of my besties who is not huge into makeup, but I just thought she would make such good use out of this palette, and I believe she does. I absolutely love this middle shade, which is Cocoa Crush. It's the most beautiful lid shade. It's something I literally could wear every single day. I kind of wish maybe something like this had rolled into my Project Level Up, but alas, it is getting used in its entirety. But because that is the truth, I'm gonna go ahead just for fun and gets and shiggles, because I've used a few out of here as well. I thought just for fun and to keep things interesting for you guys, we'll go ahead and roll in 1 palette today and maybe a couple singles, we don't know. All right, so I have my No Pan Left Behind wheel. If anything repeats, it didn't transfer over the ones that I've already done. So if I get any repeats, we'll just re-roll. But here is the wheel. Like I said, it does have all my eyeshadow palettes as well as all of my eyeshadow singles. Get her going. ABH Norvina, baby, and rate the app. Not now. ABH Norvina. I'm excited about that. Let me pull that out real quick. And I won't start with Norvina until one of these random guys rolls out, so don't worry about that. I'm sure you were just terribly worried. But anyways, ABH Norvina. I have 3 pans in this palette. Wouldn't mind at all hitting a 3rd or a 4th pan in this project. This is a great color story for this time of year as well. One year I was working on hitting 3 pans in a palette and then rolling it out and rolling a new one in. So kind of like Project Level Up, but just level 3 over and over again. So I'm excited to use this again. We'll see if there's any shade that I would say I'm remotely close to hitting pan in. It would probably be Summer, this gold, which is shocking because I'm not a big gold eyeshadow gal, but that one will be rolling in. And let's briefly talk about Project Level Up. So Project Level Up was created by Sophie Alexandra. I have her information and the information about this project down in the description box below in case you are curious. But the things you really need to know is especially like personal rules that I personally came up with for myself is I have 3 vetoes allowed. So if I roll in a palette I really don't want to work on for one reason or another, I can re-roll 3 times this year. I have not used a veto yet, so those are still intact, as well as I'm only allowing myself to hit pan on 1 lid setting shade, whether it's a bone color, a peach, whatever, just because I know myself and I'm capable of being a cop-out if I need to be. So the palette that rolled in, which was just kind of almost comical because it is one of my very newest palettes. It's one of only 2 palettes that I purchased in 2023, and it's the Huda Beauty Pretty Grunge. And if you don't know, or you're not a project panner, one thing about Huda Beauty palettes and shadows is that they are extremely hard to hit pan on. So that is what this one looks like. It's also kind of funny because it's like spring and this is like a very dark, grungy palette, but I love it regardless. I have used 11 out of the 18 shades, some of them multiple times. And that's one thing that I'm doing with this project is different than No Pan Left Behind. I don't keep track if I use shades multiple times. I just am trying to touch every pan. If I touch them more than once in the process, that's great. But in this case, on level 1, I should say I'm on level 1. And in this case, I need to use each shade at least one time and hit one pan. I do believe that since the intro, I have determined which one I'm going to try to hit pan on, and that is this shade right here. Hopefully you can see a tiny little disturbance in the shadow, and that is the shade Maverick. I have used it 3 times so far, but the thing about the Huda Beauty shadows, if you're not familiar and you're not a project panner, is that they're extremely hard to hit pan in. I know people who have used mattes from her 70 times and not hit pan on them. So I'm definitely not working on a matte shadow much as I'd like to. And even at that, like her shimmers can take a good long while, 20-30 uses to hit pan. So we'll see. I do love this shade Maverick, and I had my girl Angela kind of help me pick out what shade I might want to concentrate on. And as you can see, it's just sparkly. It's like a PC sparkly shade, and it has a tiny bit of warmth, but it's mostly cool. But it is a nice shade that I can tap over just about any look to add a little glitz and glamour. Not that I have much of that in my life. So that is the shade that I will be striving to hit pan on. And once I do that, this will be ready to roll out. But for now, I am staying on level 1. I will put up here a couple of pictures of times that I have used this palette. I did do like an all matte purple look, which is a tiny bit of Maverick on the like inner part of the lid, the very inner part. I've used it in conjunction with other palettes that I'm working on, so I'm enjoying using it. But I will definitely be ready to roll it out once I do finally hit a pan. So that'll be great. And it'll be great to have a pan in one of my newest palettes because that's pretty rare as well. So that is Project Level Up. I'm not going to go through and tell you the amount of uses that I have on everything until I'm ready to roll it out. I think that information will be more interesting at that point. So that's it for today's update. I hope you enjoyed. If you are doing this project, No Pan Left Behind or Project Level Up, let me know down below and let me know what palettes you have in currently. Are you working on singles as well or just palettes? Let's chat down in the comments. And with all of that said, I hope all of your makeup days are absolutely beautiful makeup days. Please don't forget to wear sunscreen. It's getting warm, it's getting fun and sunny and all the things, at least here in the US. Please don't forget to wear your sunscreen every single day. I love you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.